In the last video, I introduced the number line for the first time. And I think there are few things in math instruction that are less well appreciated, more underappreciated than the number line. The number line is incredibly useful for understanding all kinds of things. There are three main things I want to focus on today. See if I can fix this one. There we go, it's a little better. All of them using the number line in different ways. So if we want to compare two numbers, the number line is the best way to do that. Right? If I see 3 here and 5 here, and zeros, we just need some way to anchor ourselves, right? So it's nice to have 0 in the middle here. It's very clear that 3 is less than 5. Bringing in these numbers on the left-hand side of 0, let's say a -3 and a -5, I can see that -5 is actually less than -3. If I owe the bank $5, I'm in worse financial shape than if I owe the bank $3. Here I'm closer to solvency, closer to being in positive. I have more money than this person who owes even more money. Right? Having $5, that's more than having $3. Here, I have to dig my way out with 5 before I can even get to 0, versus digging out by only 3. This is greater than that amount. And of course, I can express the relationship using the greater than sign as well. So if we want to know which of our two numbers is greater, putting them on the number line is a great way to do that. We could even do it without using 0. If I have, let's say, 47 versus 82, here's 47, here's 82. I can put 0 on here just to emphasize that they're both positive numbers. I'm not really using it as a scale. I'm not marking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 82. I'm just visually representing, okay, 82 is the bigger number compared to 47. And that approach to using the number line just to kind of get a visual sense of where these numbers are compared to each other is going to be very useful once we get into performing more operations, especially with sign numbers. The number line is also good for talking about absolute value. When I talk about the number 3, I mean it's 3 to the right of 0. That's what this number means. 1, 2, 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. To talk about -3, I also mean the same distance of 3 both of these distances are 3, but this negative sign means I've gone to the left. So once you take the absolute value of something, you're losing information. Right? It's like if you look at a black and white copy of some bank register and you can't tell the black ink from the red ink, right? You see the value 3 on there, but you don't know, is that $3 to the right, I made money, or $3 to the left, I owe that amount of money. Right? So you actually lose information. And sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes all we need is the distance. Right? I talk all the time in class about my brother and myself, and we're 3 years apart. So when I was 20, we're 3 years apart. Does that mean he was 23? Or does that mean he was 17? if you know my brother and I, you know he's my older brother, and so you know he's this one. That was quite a few years ago when I was just 20 and he was 23. But absolute value is what we use when we talk about just the difference between things. And so one way to talk about absolute value is that it's telling us the distance. Right? How far apart are 20 and 17? They're 3 apart. How far apart are 20 and 17? They're 3 apart. Even though this subtraction is going to give us a negative, once I take that absolute value, I see the same thing. So if I'm going to define this, I'll say absolute value gives the distance, either the distance between two values or between one value and 0. Right? They're kind of two paradigms for absolute value. One is this, the distance between A and B. We'll get into that more when we define subtraction. And the other is this, the distance between A and 0. And it makes sense that these would be the same. If we just say B is 0, A minus 0, the distance between A and this other number, well, A minus 0 is A. So we get the same thing here, right? But if we only have a single number and there's not a subtraction, we're just thinking of that second number as 0. And the number line is a helpful way to process that when we're just measuring. Oops, you know, just measuring from there. How far do I have to go to get to 0? -3, -2, -1, 0. That's a distance of 4. So the distance is 4. Now, the super quick way without having to look at the number line is to just say, well, distance is always positive, right? The difference in age between my brother and I is 3 years old. We don't say the difference is -3. We use the words younger or older. Right? If I say I live 300 miles away from my parents, um, I'm not worried about east, south, north, west, particular cardinal direction. I'm just saying that distance is 4 miles, whether I'm going to the right or to the left, 300 miles to the right, to the left. It's just that positive number. So absolute value is going to give us a positive, whether we start with a negative or start with a positive. I said the number line is useful for 3 different situations. One of them was comparing numbers for A versus B. One is for absolute value. Distance from A to 0. Or the distance between A and 0 would be even better. A could be positive, A could be negative. Even here, A and B could be positive or negative. I didn't put 0 on this number line, but I see A is to the left of B, so it's less than B. So those are 2 uses of the number line. The third major use of the number line is talking about movement along the number line. Use the number line to show movement. And it's actually much better at this than the pictorial representations uh, we started with, because when we're just using pictures, 3 stars plus one more star, it's really hard to have like half a star, right? Is that a half? Is that 60% of a star? Um, 0.6. It's hard to tell here, right? What if I'm not really counting particular things? Um, if I'm dealing with negatives, how do I show 3 minus 5? I can cross out 3 and then cross out 2 that aren't there, and that shows -2. It's really hard to show that. So once we get into addition and subtraction, the number line is going to show that very clearly. So in the next video, we'll clearly define addition and subtraction and show how they work on the number line, which will make adding and subtracting integers, sign numbers, much more straightforward and easy to understand than you might be expecting.